I'm Teisha Bader with Shalom TV's news update for Tuesday, December the 3rd, 2013. Israel is to be officially included into the United Nations Western, Eastern, and Others group in Geneva, a move that grants it national rights at the UN's Human Rights Council. Israel's foreign ministry received a formal invitation to join the group yesterday and is now expected to formally reestablish full ties with the UNHRC. Israel had severed ties with the Council in March of last year when the organization voted to send a fact-finding mission to Israel to investigate the impact of the settlements on Palestinian human rights and in protest of the group's general anti-Israel bias. Israel had agreed back in October of this year to partake in the UNHRC's Universal Periodic Review of its human rights record, but said it was waiting for an invitation from WEOG before formally reestablishing ties. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry welcomed Israel's inclusion. He said at a time when the scourge of global anti-Semitism is on the rise, it is more important than ever for Israel to have a strong voice that can be heard everywhere. Adding, this is a particularly welcome development as we work to end anti-Israel bias in the UN system. Kerry said we will continue to speak out for our close ally Israel, and we will continue to support efforts to normalize Israel's treatment across the UN system as a full and equal member of the community of nations. Kerry is set to arrive in Israel tomorrow to meet with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Samantha Power also welcomed the news. In a statement released yesterday, Power said, "For far too long, Israel has been unfairly excluded from regional bodies at the United Nations." Further saying, as President Obama has made clear, the United States opposes effort to undermine Israel's legitimacy as a full and equal member of the community of nations, and will continue to work vigorously to end structural discrimination against Israel throughout the UN system. Israeli Foreign Ministry Deputy Director General for UN and international organizations Aharon Leshno Yaar said that the invitation to WEOG was the end of many months of serious diplomatic effort by the Foreign Ministry and its missions, especially in European countries, in Canada, and in the U.S. He said the UNHRC without Israel is a flawed institution. Now with Israel fully engaged, it will have greater credibility. Israel, he said, will also enjoy the recognition of being a full member of the community of nations. The inclusion is set to go into effect on the 1st of the year. And American Jewish organizations also reacted to the news from the UN. National Director of the Anti-Defamation League, Abe Foxman, said the acceptance of Israel into the UN regional group removes a significant hurdle to the Jewish state's UN involvement. Foxman said Israel still faces an entrenched, institutionalized anti-Israel infrastructure at the UN, and anti-Israel resolutions in the General Assembly and Human Rights Council sail through. But he said with the new status in WEOG, Israel can finally participate and exercise its full and equal status in these international bodies. Executive Director of the American Jewish Committee, David Harris, said the step ends the shameful anomaly whereby Israel was the only UN member state not fully integrated in the world body's regional grouping system in the Human Rights Council headquarters in Geneva, while also noting that there was still work to be done to fight Israel's biased treatment at the UN. B'nai B'rith International echoed the sentiment. Its Executive Vice President Daniel Mariashin said Israel's reported inclusion in WEOG is a positive step, but it has been a long time in coming. Certainly we will watch to see if Israel will now be treated more fairly in Geneva, he said, where it has been a perennial and singular target of political attacks. He added that fairness towards Israel at the UN was key to restoring the United Nations' credibility. The Jerusalem Post reports that according to an unnamed army source, small arms fire shot at an IDF patrol from across the Syrian border yesterday may have been intentional and not a result of spillover from the Syrian civil war. An army source told the Post today that the attack was a deliberate one launched by a lone Syrian soldier, and that after identifying the source of the fire and seeing that they were being targeted on purpose, an IDF infantry unit returned fire, striking the attacker's position. It remains unclear if the Syrian shooter was killed or injured. And Israel's Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon toured the Golan Heights today, where he addressed the mortar fire that landed in Israel yesterday, which is believed to have been spillover from the Syrian civil conflict. Ya'alon said Israel does not see the situation in Syria stabilizing anytime soon, and that the IDF is there to safeguard Israel's interests. Ya'alon also took the opportunity to address relations with the U.S. regarding the recent Iran deal. He said that there was disagreement between Israel and the U.S. administration on the Iranian issue, and Israel voiced its opinion. He added, however, that Israel's relations with the U.S. did not suffer as a result. He said the channels are open, including the one between the president and the prime minister. We consider the move in Geneva as a historic mistake. We thought the agreement is problematic, and that is why we made our voices heard, he said. Ya'alon, however, added that the relations between Israel and the U.S. are excellent and are based on common values and interests, saying that even between such friends, there can be differences. Jailed Jewish American State Department subcontractor Alan Gross has sent a letter to President Obama asking him to help secure his release from a Cuban prison. Gross sent the letter today, marking the 4th anniversary of his imprisonment. Gross was arrested in 2009 for providing internet access to Cuba's Jewish community and sentenced to 15 years for, quote, crimes against the state. The letter, which was published by the Washington Post, read, "It is clear to me, Mr. President, that only with your personal involvement can my release be secured." Gross wrote, "I know that your administration and prior administrations have taken extraordinary steps to obtain the release of other U.S. citizens imprisoned abroad, even citizens who were not arrested for their work on behalf of their country." Yesterday, the U.S. State Department called on the Cuban government to release Gross, quote, immediately and unconditionally. Gross's wife, Judy, along with officials from the Jewish Community Relations Council of Greater Washington and other Jewish and faith groups, protested Alan Gross's imprisonment outside the White House today. A 92-year-old Dutch former member of a Nazi death squad who was convicted several years ago for his crimes has died in a German prison. Heinrich Bohr was convicted in 2010 of killing 3 Dutch civilians in 1944 as a Waffen-SS squad member targeting anti-Nazi resistance fighters. He was sentenced to life in prison. After the war, Bohr was captured by U.S. forces in the Netherlands and confessed to the killings, but he escaped in 1947 and fled to Germany. He was sentenced to death in absentia in the Netherlands in 1949. Bohr, who was once high on the Simon Wiesenthal Center's list of most wanted Nazis, continued to claim throughout his life that he was only following orders. The Jewish Daily Forward reports that outgoing New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg will use the $1 million recently awarded to him through the Genesis Prize to promote commerce between Israel and the Palestinians. Speaking at an official Hanukkah party yesterday, Bloomberg said that he had already informed Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of his intention to use the award to boost trade between Israelis and Palestinians. Bloomberg said, "We have to find some way that everybody can get along in that space, or it won't end nicely for anybody." Bloomberg is the inaugural recipient of the Genesis Prize of the Genesis Philanthropy Group, which is awarded to an exceptional Jewish person, then presenting him or her as an inspiration to Jews everywhere. And turning to our programming tonight on Shalom TV for Tuesday, December the 3rd, it is the 7th night of Hanukkah, and you can watch award-winning Broadway star Tova Feldshuh light the 7th candle tonight at 6:30. And at 9, L'Chaim focuses on the West Bank city of Ariel, as Mark Golub is joined by Dorit Nachman, the widow of Ariel founding mayor Ron Nachman, and with the Ariel International representative, Avi Zimmerman. That's here tonight on Shalom TV and ShalomTV.com. And that's Shalom TV's news update for Tuesday, December the 3rd, 2013. I'm Teisha Bader. Chag Sameach.